Welcome back under the big top for the big finale of the Cyborg Tinkerer. Last time, our cyborgs returned to their ship, but it was too late. There was a force field over the planet. Gwen goes full big damn hero and goes to turn off the force field, but it turns out to be literally the only thing she can't do. Gwen fights off a bunch of soldiers single-handed with a broken leg. The dragon shows up, again for some reason, but awesome hero Gwen TM uses it to blow up the force field. Gwen gets shot multiple times and doesn't care. Instead, she flies her skimmer up and away from the dragon in a moment right out of several movies.
Behold, for I am the goddess of the sun. I just wanted to show you all how much I have to open up the lens when I'm going to be filming in the library versus how much I have to open it up when I'm out here. Right now it's set to the library. So that's another reason that I like to film in the living room. There we go, that's a little bit more reasonable. So what do you think? Do I look like the mistress of an evil cyborg circus? Or what? Yes, evil cyborgs, circuses. I don't really have steampunk outfits, so this is the best I could come up with. Okay, so maybe this dress-up thing isn't something I've been doing that long, but I think I want to continue the trend. We are going to be finishing the last few chapters of the Cyborg Tinkerer. What? Yes, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna get some sex. I was a little sad that Adam couldn't be here for the finishing of this book, but I don't think he's actually missing that much. With no further ado, actually there is going to be some ado. I'm going to go get a beverage. But then no more ado. Pretty sure that the mistress of an evil cyborg circus would definitely use a pink straw. Am I finally going to be able to use my third pink tag? Because are we finally going to get some actual for real sex in this book? Let's find out. Any of my ace viewers who are worried, I will be putting Mr. Yuck up on the screen if I happen to talk about anything that gross. Let's go. Hey, right away we found a line that I don't hate. Gwen is, of course, coming back conscious after her great excursion involving a dragon and falling from the sky and being rescued at the last second. Her leg throbbed as though it had been chopped off and sewn back on by a child. I like that. That's great. So it took me a minute to realize what was happening, but after a little bit of rereading and studying of it, it seems that Gwen still has her eyes closed and she is listening to voices in the room, and those are the voices of Bastion and Rora who are talking about her. So Rora has come to apologize for some reason. What did she do? I guess maybe believing the Emperor was the main thing that she did. But she's like, I realized while I was freeing a dragon in the stable that I love Gwen.
Sure, Jan.
Rora, honey, you are being gaslit into believing that you did all of these bad things. Rora says, I should never have tried to use her. That was wrong. But I didn't betray you on purpose. You didn't do anything. She even says, Abrakan tortured the information out of me. Wow, these characters are just really here to assure us that Gwen is the best. Because Bastion says, you don't deserve her. Neither of us does. You guys don't want Gwen. She is the biggest jerk. She's a giant, poopy head jerk face. She let an entire ship full of slaves just sail away so she could save her boyfriend.
So when we went over that chapter, we talked about how we could have rewritten it so that Gwen could save the slaves. It would have been pretty easy. There were a couple of good options. Probably more than you guys thought of. But let's say that you wanted to write it so she couldn't. How would we save that scene? Well, you're going to have to put Bastion in a lot more distress than what we got on the page. I suspect that Meg thought that she was clear that Bastion was literally dying if Gwen didn't take him to get medical assistance right now, but that's not what we got, especially since Gwen took enough time to painstakingly throw every single corpse into the water before she moved on. No, we would have needed to feel the urgency. We needed needed to see Bastion collapsing. We needed to see him coughing up blood. We needed to see him on death's door so that we have a reason for Meg not to look like the world's biggest asshole when she leaves behind a ship full of slaves who were supposedly people that she cared about. And then we needed to see her go back and look for the ship instead of just being told that she did so. Because after her blasé attitude about the slaves earlier, we definitely don't believe that she went back and checked on the slave ship. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Meg had all kinds of options not to make her main character look like an asshole, but unfortunately she didn't really have the experience to pull it off. And also, I think she was trying not to make her main male lead look too weak by injuring him too badly. But honestly, he needs to be seriously injured for this scene to work, and for that, he's gonna have to look kind of pathetic, and that's okay.
We're doing the Miss fucking Grimm thing again. I hate it. We get a little reminder. Gwen is just kind of rehashing for us her love journey of falling for Aurora, and then Aurora was like in the sleep like death, like a Disney princess, and then Gwen says that she almost left on a flesh trader ship. She almost left on the slave ship, even though they were, like, capturing her. And then she says, Bastion saved me, the flesh traders would have taken me, and it's like no mention of the slaves that you just let go, even though you had pretty much killed everyone on that ship. Aurora is so gaslit. It is concerning how much she believes that everything she did was her fault. She thinks that she used Gwen. There was never, like, at the very beginning, Aurora was like, I'm gonna seduce this tinkerer. And then, like, 2 seconds in, it became abundantly clear that, A, Gwen was hot to trot at any given time, and B, Aurora was the worst at seducing anyone ever. And, like, since that moment, she only vaguely thought about seducing Gwen, like, one other time. There was no using Gwen. And she keeps apologizing for this betrayal where she was tortured. Poor girl, she deserves better than these people. And I don't even like Aurora, but wow, is it distressing how much she believes that everything is her fault. I hate you so much, Gwen. You don't deserve any girlfriends or boyfriends.
So this is just speculation, purely speculation on my part. But as an author, I know you kind of do have to fall in love with your characters a little bit as you write them. And I have a theory that Meg had a giant crush on her own character in the form of Aurora at the beginning. She was crushing on Aurora. That's why she was like, yes, Gwen and Aurora are endgame. But as the book progressed, her crush gravitated over to Bastion, and that's why Aurora is now being treated like absolute dog shit as a character, because the author has moved on from her.
Wow, Gwen, I want to smack you. Gwen says, I forgive you, but trust needs to be earned. So poor Aurora, who has basically done nothing wrong, is going to have to come begging and scraping back into this obnoxious woman's good graces. And I hate it so much.
Settle for me. Baby cakes, just settle for me.
And of course, Bastion, everything he did is completely forgivable because, oh, he was brainwashed at the time. And having him have some kind of choice would have made him an interesting character. Gwen gets up, she's fine, and she swings her legs over the bed, and she realizes that A, she's not wearing any pants, but B, that her leg has like a brand new cast on it, and I'm like, ooh, how cool would it have been if instead she swung her legs off the bed and she had a new cyborg leg? Would have been way cooler. So we have this moment where both of these people watch her get up, and she stands up and she limps like a couple of steps and then collapses so Bastion can like sweep her into his manly arms. But like neither of them tried to stop her standing up. I just don't think that this is how polyamorous relationships are supposed to feel. I've never been in one, but if you are polyamorous, please feel free to let me know. But she is definitely like, she's already kissing Bastion, this huge romantic moment. And the other person in this eventual throuple was expected to come crawling to her, apologizing and begging for scraps, while Bastion is obviously her main love interest, who she really wants to be with. Like, we're not even getting any horniness anymore. She's not even really hot for Aurora at this point. This feels icky. It feels really icky and emotionally manipulative, and I don't like it. And now poor Aurora is just like standing there off to the side as these two have a prolonged kissing sequence. And so he laid her back on the bed and they're smooching, and suddenly things just start to get hot and heavy. And I'm like, She's, like, supposedly very injured, but I mean, I guess. Again, Adam isn't here. All the sexuals, help me out. Does this seem realistic to you? Also, Rora is just still standing in the corner, I guess, waiting for permission. Like, what is this relationship? Yeah, he's, like, licking down her chest to her breasts, and I'm just imagining Rora just standing there, like, okay, should I go? Finally, Rora's like, I can leave. And Gwen says, don't. No, stay here and watch us have sex. That's not awkward. We all know this is going to lead to a threesome, but I am dying to know how, because none of this feels like it's going to naturally lead to, like, a threesome. I have never been in a threesome, but, like, I don't feel like this is how it would go. She's a little bit horny for Aurora again, and I'm going to use my one of my last 2 horniness stickers, even though, I mean, it's kind of a sexy times. We haven't really gotten to the real sex yet. There's just a lot of, like, licking, but I'm sure we will finally be able to mark down our sexy time. But at least she's acknowledging Aurora again. So basically Gwen is like, I want both of you, and Aurora essentially just is like, yep, I'll settle for scraps. Like, is that not what it sounds like? Here, let me read it. I want to be with you, Gwen, in any way you want. So Aurora doesn't even get an opinion, or whether maybe she would like to change some parameters of this relationship at all. She's just like, cool. And of course Bastian is down for it. He's like, yep, I love Gwen so much. I would be fine sharing her as well. So they get to smooching.
I'm also not sure that it's the best message to send that a previously very firmly monogamous character, Bastian, he's made it clear that he's a monogamous guy, is now just ready to flip a switch and go with a polyamorous relationship. I don't think it's a great message to send, because you're allowed to be monogamous, you're allowed to be polyamorous, you're allowed to feel however you feel, but you shouldn't force yourself to be something else just to get into a relationship with someone. Toxicity all around in this relationship, in my opinion.
And immediately Bastian starts laying down his ground rules for their situation. Aurora was just like, I'll do anything. And Bastian's like, here's what I want from this relationship. I usually don't want threesomes, so I'm open to it every now and then, but I prefer that when it's you and me, it's just you and me. And it's like, okay, great. But what about, I'm so mad at the treatment of Aurora, a character that I don't even like. I wish that Bastian and Aurora were friends, because they're dealing with the fact that not only are they going to be sharing the same woman, but they don't particularly like each other, and I think that's a little bit of a problem. Again, I've never been in a polyamorous relationship, but I think it helps if you actually all, like, not, maybe don't romantically all like each other, but at least are friends. Especially if you're all going to be, like, living together in the same circus. Like, if there's a long distance thing or something like that, maybe you don't need to be friends. But this situation, I don't know. Yeah, Aurora is just... I am cool with everything Bastian said, and also I'm down for threesomes whenever you want. Gwen is like, cool, now that we've worked that out, let's have a threesome. I want both of you right now. And both of them are like, cool, we're down with this, even though you're severely injured. Let's go. We also get a slight hint that Bastian might be recovering from his eating disorder, probably through the power of love. I've talked about this before. Your significant other cannot, should not be responsible for curing your mental illness. That is not a thing, okay? I've read some smut. Look, I read fan fiction, so I know what smut looks like, and I don't think this is good smut. They are having sex, but let me just... She describes his dick as so hard and so long that Gwen couldn't help her sudden intake of breath. And I'm just picturing a ridiculously long cock, right? Like, unrealistically long, like across the room kind of a situation. I'm pretty sure that Meg prefers her women clean-shaved. But Aurora is, as Gwen guessed in that dream that we had, the sexy dream all the way back here in the book. Surprise, surprise, even though they were just like fighting dragons and stuff, Aurora is clean-shaven everywhere. I think I feel pretty safe finally giving this my 3rd sexy times little sticker. I think we are not going to be interrupted. I think we are going to get an actual sex, real sex for the first time in this book. Oh my God. So sexy. So sexy. Again, I'm gonna put Mr. Yuck on the screen for anybody who doesn't want to hear about this, but Gwen said to Bastion, "I want you to fuck me." She turned to Rora, where she stood beside the bed, "And I want you to fuck my face. Any objections?" Wow, that's just... You know how to dirty talk, Gwen. You are a master. What? Okay, now Rora has a big ass? No. That is untrue. So Gwen is fondling Rora, and she says, "Planets must have been envious of that ass." First of all, what is all of this comparing body parts to planets and suns and shit like that? I don't know how I feel about that. But also, like, we established that Gwen is the one with a real badonkadonk here. Don't try to be telling me at the last minute that Rora's is big too. This is like, again, I've read smut, and this is gross to read. Like, usually I can understand what's enticing about it, but it's just described, it sounds unappealing. I'm gonna read something, Mr. Yuck is on the screen. "His cock slid into her wet folds." That doesn't sound appealing. I just don't get it. Maybe that is, maybe I haven't read enough smut, but this does not... I've read some stuff that sounded like it would be really titillating if you were into that kind of thing. And this is not it. I've also never participated in a threesome, but it seems like there's a lot going on, and like, how do you concentrate on all of that? So Bastion's pull-out game is strong. I guess we don't have any kind of birth control here. Again, what is the medical technology of this place? I'm going to assume that Gwen probably has about 1 million sexually transmitted diseases. But Bastion pulls out and comes on her stomach instead. So, and then after all of that, after everybody has fucked everybody else, she asks, "Want to go again?" Like, I just don't think this was very sexy. Alright, let's get on to chapter 41. Is this our last chapter? No, there's 2 more, but one of them's really short. Okay, we're back. I know this won't be a separate video. I just want to help myself in the editing process. Let's go. Chapter 41. So Gwen is definitely enjoying the benefits of being absolutely adored by 2 people because they've left her little presents when she wakes up, and she's just feeling very pampered. And I'm like, of course you are. But what about your partners? Bitch, what are you doing for them? Other than just gracing them with your amazing presence, I guess. Oh yeah, I forgot that she was shot in the shoulder twice. She'd been shot in the shoulder twice, and she just fucked 2 people at the same time. Now she's sore. Like, she's getting up and moving around, and she's like, ow. So Gwen goes out onto the deck, and there's still watchmen around, and she's concerned, like, why are the watchmen here? But then she sees Rora and Rosanna and Akio, and they're all just like, "Gwen, you're okay. Oh my gosh, we love Gwen." More Gwen adoration. "You are strong, capable, smart, and most importantly, you are kind." Since when? Luckily, the mistress gave everybody time for a lengthy threesome before she decided to speak to everyone. But now she has come, and she's brought some of her watchmen, and they're all like standing around in a circle being very ominous and menacing. Gwen kindly explains how ridiculous this plan was, but she makes it sound like it was some sort of brilliant master plan. "Buying a cyborg circus, that's one elaborate scheme," Gwen said. "All to take down the Emperor. Why not start a new life elsewhere? Hell, you could have even made a cyborg implant manufacturing site outside the Union to spite him. If that was an option, why didn't she..." There's an option for cyborgs to just leave? I thought that they couldn't go anywhere. Why was anyone still in this circus?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
I'm not convinced there are any other cyborgs, because most of them probably left, because apparently you can just get out of Union territory, whatever that means, and you're fine. Because Gwen is like, the Emperor is going to be really pissed now, and he's going to be even more dead set against cyborgs, and he's going to hunt all of them down, and like, I don't think there are any more. Except you guys. You guys were the only ones stupid enough to stay here. And I know we're probably trying to set up the Emperor as like the big bad for this continuing series. I would have killed him. Kill him and then have the big bad, sort of, be like this power black hole that's gonna happen where all of these new leaders are trying to take over as the Emperor. What are they going to do for cyborgs? Like, let's go a little bit bigger here. Again, why did the mistress wait? She waited to take over the ship, to take back her ship, until Bastion, who is running the ship right now, was like finished having sex. Why didn't she just take over while he was like nowhere around? Oh, where is he? Never mind, I'm taking over this ship. But no, she waited. so that she could, I guess, shoot Bastion and Gwen together? It's confusing. I know you are the worst at evil plans, but like, go down to Gwen's room while no one is there and shoot her, and then shoot Bastion some other time, or shoot him first, rather than just being like, well, I'll lay low until they're finished having a threesome, and then I'll make my move.
Not a great plan.
I don't want to tell you how to run your terrible evil regime, but I am dressed for it, so actually I really think I'm going to be taking over myself from now on. I don't think that's how that works. So the Watchmen are going to shoot them, and then Bastion gives a signal and somebody turns off the gravity. And that makes the bullets that the Watchmen fired float uselessly in the air, and I don't think that's how that works. If you've been to space, please tell me, but if you were going to shoot someone in space, wouldn't the bullet keep going even if the gravity was turned off because of the momentum?
All right, everyone, I have Adam here with me and his scientific expertise.
Scientific expert here, yes.
All right, Adam, I'm going to ask you a question.
All right.
If you fired a bullet and then the gravity suddenly went away, would the bullet keep going into your intended target, or would the bullet float away into space?
So it definitely wouldn't float away. It's basic laws of inertia. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion, and objects at rest tend to stay at rest. So the bullet would definitely have its same velocity at the moment the gravity stopped. If you're a sniper shooting 3 to 4 miles away, you have to take in, or like if you're doing like artillery rounds or shooting a battleship's cannon, you need to take into account the curve of the Earth and the gravity in order to like hit something. At a long enough distance, if the gravity turned off and you still had another like mile or two for the bullet to go, the lack of gravity would cause it to not curve towards the gravity source. But if you're like 100 feet away, that's not going to make a difference. The bullet's going to keep going super fast into whatever you aimed it at.
Yeah, and in this scene, it's almost point blank. Like, they're all standing on the quarterdeck surrounding our heroes. So our heroes would probably be dead, is what you're saying?
I mean, if the lack of gravity is what caused the bullet to veer off and not kill the heroes, then yes. This is just magical plot armor. In reality, the bullet would have still killed them.
Thank you, Adam.
Bastion signaled to Marzana to go turn off the gravity. That's what's happening. It's all part of his clever scheme. Also, Gwen has magnetic boots, and they activate, of course, when the gravity is off, but the Mistress doesn't, and none of her Watchmen do either. Why? If you're on a spaceship like this, where all that's holding you on is a gravity field that might fail, why wouldn't you all have boots that can, like, activate and stick you to the deck? Because they're just literally floating off into space. They're gonna die in space. This seems like a huge oversight. Apparently, if you hit the ship's oxygen bubble, and it even mentions here, by the way, that the oxygen bubble is exactly like the dome that hovered over the Covenant. So again, I don't understand why Gwen was not familiar enough with this technology to do something about it. Apparently also hitting this bubble is potentially fatal. So, like, what? Why doesn't he have magnetic boots? Bastion has to hold on to Gwen because he doesn't have magnetic boots either. Also, why isn't it horribly painful? Because he's holding on to her and he's floating. And she has a broken leg. She put her boots on. They told us that. I was actually kind of wondering like why they described her entire dressing routine, but I just was like, it's probably just bad writing. But we needed to know that she was wearing her boots so that we could know that she could have magnetic boots in this scene. Okay, whatever. But wouldn't it hurt a lot to have your broken leg being pulled on by a guy who's trying not to float away? So it works. The Mistress is like, okay, I surrender. Please don't let us get zapped on the giant oxygen field. So they re-engage the gravity and they slam into the deck.
Mr. Snuff, engage artificial gravity!
And Bastion just runs in real fast and disarms all of the Watchmen before they can get up. Then Rora shows up. She appears, of course. I'm so used to it, I didn't even really register. And she's got an electroshocker and she just zaps all of the Watchmen. Also, she says that she got the electroshocker from Abraken, and that makes me wonder, what the fuck happened to Abraken? Did he die? Did he fuck off? Where is he? He was just literally just here to be like a minor boss battle, a minor villain earlier in the book, and now he's just disappeared off the page forever. The mistress gets to work on all of the cyborgs, and Gwen is like, how did you do the forgetting? Put everybody's memories back. Making a lot of assumptions that that is something that the mistress both did and can counteract. But again, the forgetting is the stupidest plot point. Terrible, in my opinion. So apparently every time that the mistress did a checkup, she would just take people's memories, which apparently function just like files that you can move around, and just move them out of people's heads.
This file contains the most particular memory.
And so she's just got them all stored on her computer, and she can put them all back. Although, wouldn't it be hilarious if she gave people back the wrong memories by mistake? I hope you labeled those really well. And Gwen was like, why are my memories being removed so much quicker? Which doesn't seem to be true. She seemed to be losing her memory at about the rate that they were like supposed to. And the mistress is like, well, I had to get yours out, especially. I had to make a special program to get rid of yours because the last Tinkerer figured out what was going on, and so I had him killed, and so I had to make you forget even faster because I thought for some reason that that would make you less suspicious. Okay. I shouldn't be surprised that every single one of the mistress's plans is terrible, but still you hope. And she let Bastion keep most of his memories because she wanted him guilty so she could use him, I guess. So she had to give him a whole different chip. I know why that really was. It was really so that we could turn Bastion off and on again, essentially. So there was an easy way to just get Bastion fully back. We had to give him a whole separate chip versus everybody else who just could be turned off and on with a remote control, except for Gwen and Rora and anybody else that Gwen took the memory card out of. Yes, I'm calling it a memory card.
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
It's so convoluted and unnecessarily so. Like, this could be very much tweaked. Why did he have to be mind controlled? It could have been so much more interesting. There were options. The villain monologue should at the very least make the reader go, oh, and understand all of the things like coming together. And in reality, it's just making it worse. I kind of don't want her to explain her evil plan because it's just making the plot of this book even worse. So she explains that she kept experimenting on the animals to figure out how to make the chips better, and she found this metal, and this is so hand-wavy, it's hilarious. I learned that by using a rare metal in a cyborg's chip, my coding was quite suddenly far more effective. And that's all the information I'm going to give you about that. It just happened. A wizard did it. The special metal is called Magellan, I don't know how it's pronounced, but it looks like a combination of magic and lunar, which does not surprise me knowing how good Meg is at naming things.
The richest unobtainium deposit within 200 clicks.
Again, no one is surprised that the mistress was doing things not because they were logical, but they were just part of her evil scheme. They went to Jinx, the evil planet, the one planet where they were actually doing a circus performance as part of this competition. Jinx was where she got some more of the special metal.
So I think this is supposed to explain a little bit about why, when they went to the pirate planet, they were not attacked, even though the characters kept being like, you could get shot down just for approaching the planet, it's super lawless and dangerous, and it was because the mistress was there to do big business with them, purchasing some unobtainium. Great, fine, whatever, that could be foreshadowing, except it felt, as a reader, a lot more like the author was just too lazy to put in a harrowing situation. If you wanted us to notice that and be like, oh, that's what the mistress was up to, we have to have a scene on the deck of the ship where everybody's braced to be attacked by pirates. It's super dangerous, they're super tense, and for some reason no pirates attack them, and they land perfectly fine. We have to see it to register it. If you just mention it, like, oh, this planet's really dangerous, I guess no one attacked us, it seems like lazy writing instead of an actual intentional foreshadowing.
I'm a little bit confused, and maybe I missed something. Maybe someone can like help clarify what they remember in the comments, but the mistress is like, how were Marzana and Rora immune to my mind control? And presumably Akio as well. And but the Akio was not mentioned here. I thought Akio was also immune. And Gwen is like, I accidentally literally restarted them. Like, I turned them off and on again. As I turned these two human beings off and then on again. And that made them immune. And I'm like, okay, but what about you, Gwen? Why were you immune? I thought it was just literally anybody who Gwen had taken the chip out of and looked at it on the computer. Somehow it had kind of like erased the mind control or reset the mind control or something like that. This is so confusing. You are making it worse, Meg. By trying to explain it, you are making it worse. I feel like she came up with all of these ideas without knowing how they worked, and then she just had to make it up. She had to retcon all of it to be like, yep, this is how it definitely worked all along. And like, even I, as a pantser, if there's something like fundamental to my story, like the magic system, let's use the magic system in my adventurer mage books, I know how that works. My husband will often quiz me and ask me questions about how the magic system works to see if I have an answer for some of his questions. And I know how it works. So there's never a moment where I have to be like, oh yeah, it totally has worked this way all along, because I've known from the beginning pretty much how it worked. Even though like pants the story, there are details that are key to me just knowing about them. And it doesn't feel like Meg did. I would be really curious to know if she's a plotter. Everybody gets their memories back, tra-la-la, everything's fine. Even the Watchmen, everyone's back to being fine. Gwen has all of her memories back, and she thinks like for a minute, gosh, I hope the Emperor doesn't go after my family. He's probably going to be too distracted hunting down cyborgs. But now, all of the cyborgs are on Gwen's side, and they're against the Mistress and presumably the Emperor. So now Gwen, going into the next book, has an army of angry cyborgs. Did we even return Abrakan's memories? Again, he's just gone. Maybe he's just worshipping at the Church of Gwen like everyone else now. And that's the end of that chapter, and we're on to the last chapter, chapter 42. I'm going to stop and restart the camera again, and then we will be finished with this book. And we can have our little chat about our final thoughts. And we're back. Chapter 42. Of course, now Gwen is the captain, and everyone's just perfectly fine with obeying her, even though most of them have never spoken a single word to her. They're fine with that.
How would you describe my leadership skills?
Non-existent. Otherwise excellent.
Gwen, once again, just coming up with these amazing ideas. This is why they need her, because she is the best.
Sarcasm? You think?
Aurora says we have to find a way to, like, support ourselves. We can't be a circus anymore. And Gwen is like, not necessarily. We could go someplace outside of the Union. We could launch Cirque de Borg 2.0 and call it the Circus of Cyborgs. And because everybody thinks that Gwen is literally made of sparkly candy, they're all like, yeah, that sounds great. That's a great name for it. Good job. I'm not convinced that Gwen hasn't got them all brainwashed. They're heading for a place called Smoke Ring. Meg. Oh, dear sweet Meg. You are so bad at naming things. It is kind of endearing. Smoke Ring is the nearest solar system to the Crescent solar system, but apparently it's still outside of the Union, so yay? I don't understand how this Union works. So like, I guess they're going to be near or going to see a Bastion's dad, who is Kazim Kabir, the Sultan of the Rift, which sounds like it's going to be culturally insensitive, but we'll get there when we get there. So he's probably going to be in the next book, I would assume. And of course, Gwen couldn't be dating people who weren't like very special. Rora is a lady. We don't really find out more about that. And Bastion is the son of a sultan. So we couldn't have our precious Gwen, goddess of all, dating normal people. See, Meg is trying to set up some really big ideas for the next book. There's a sultan to deal with, who presumably is like a crime sultan, because he was doing all kinds of shady dealings to do with slavery and smuggling and all of that kind of thing with his son. We've got an angry emperor out for blood. Everybody who's not a cyborg is going to be trying to chase down cyborgs. There's a lot of really big powers moving in potential future books, and I am 100% certain that Meg can't handle it. She needs to write a smaller story. She needs to write characters who are less hugely important into the grand scape of the worlds. She's in space, so there's so much. It's too big, quite frankly. She has bitten off way more than she can chew. She needs to write a story of some little guys doing small things that aren't saving the world. She's trying to write Lord of the Rings. She should be writing The Hobbit. And you can write stories about little guys who, like, never save the world. Again, talking about my own writing, the Adventurer Mage books are about normal people within their world who never become godlike, who never become super powerful, who never turn out to be lost princesses or super important. They're just people and trying to survive their lives. And that can be interesting, or at least I like to think so. Very subtle, Meg. Very subtle. So they're all like, we need new identities, we're going to be on the run, and they're tossing names back and forth, and Bastian wants to name Gwen Bell. And he wants to name himself Beast, but spelled B-I-E-S-T-E. Is that French, or is that just a weird spelling? I don't know, and I'm too lazy to check. Yeah, she wants to name him Adam, which is the name, canonically, of the prince before he was transformed into a beast. So we are just... subtlety, who is she? We don't know her. It sounds mean, but even as I'm going back through and I'm editing these, I have praised Meg before for being able to understand what ideas she likes from other things, movies, other authors, understanding them and trying to use them in her own book. I think that is part of the growing process. It's like learning to draw. A lot of people start out drawing like anime characters or something, taking someone else's style and learning through it. That's fine, it's all part of the growing process. But in this book, it doesn't feel like Meg had any ideas of her own. She only churns out other people's ideas in a slightly different form. Inspiration is fine, but not a single thing in this book feels like it was a Meg idea. It all feels like she watched How to Train Your Dragon, she watched The Wizard of Oz, she watched Beauty and the Beast, she watched Sleeping Beauty, and so many other inspirations. She obviously watched Treasure Planet. Somebody pointed out the ways that this is like the Lunar Chronicles. Like, she just took other people's ideas and repackaged them. She put them in a blender and stuck them into this book. And of course, I mean, duh, Aurora is, they're floating the name Aurora for her, which she loves. So now we've got Beauty and the Beast and Aurora. So that's the end, and it ends, you know, I'm trying to be all hopeful and flowery or whatever, but it handily gives us what her needs were supposed to be. For at last she knew she had everything she needed, people who loved her and a belief in herself. When she started out this book, could we looking at her say that these were two things that she needed? Because we've talked about it before, needs and wants with characters. A character wants things and a character needs things, and a lot of times those things are in conflict. Now these are two things that she ended up with at the end of the book, but are these things that she needed at the beginning? I don't think she ever really lacked belief in herself. And yes, she didn't have people who loved her, but she had every sexual partner that she could want. Maybe at the beginning we were supposed to understand that she was like very shallow and just had sex with people and used them and cast them aside. Maybe that's what we were meant to understand at the beginning. And then she now has people that she loves, and so now the sex is like more pure somehow. Maybe. But yeah, just comment below and tell me what you think about her wants and needs, if there were any, and do these things have anything to do with what they actually were? There's a whole glossary in the back, which this book did not need. I'm reading all of her acknowledgments at the end. It's 2 pages worth of acknowledgments, by the way. And she's thanking her editors, and she had a copy editor and a proofreader, and there were still errors in this book, which goes to show you that it is really quite difficult to get all errors out of a thing this size. This is a tangent, this is a pet peeve of mine, but I have noticed that a critique that people throw against self-published authors especially is that the book has too many typos in it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that some don't have a lot of typos, but I also feel that critics of self-published books assume that copy editing, line editing is the easiest part, and also assume that nobody does it. And that both of those are not true. You can probably write an essay, go over it 100 times and still there'd be a typo lurking in there. But they assume that an entire book like this, you can get all of the typos out. There are lots of traditionally published books that still have typos in them. So no, it is not the easiest part. Far from it is one of the hardest parts, and many of us do it and do pay people to do it, and typos still get into our books because it is actually one of the hardest parts of self-publishing, not one of the easiest. I'm going to end this rant here, and then I have to go empty the memory card because we've been talking for too long, and then we're going to do a little outro finishing up our conversation about this book, any other things that we want to bring up. We will return. Looking at like the little thumbnails of all of the videos when I unloaded them, I looked like a granny versus a mistress of a cyborg circus, but whatever, I'm not taking this costume off. I only have one orange tab left. These are the ones I was using for horniness, and I only started halfway through the book. Look at this. Obviously I used up most of some of them, so I will have to, if I use this bookmark again, I'll just have to use the other colors for other things randomly. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy using the tabs? Was that fun, seeing all of the results? Okay, so I feel like I need to hold the book to talk about it. I feel like I need to address it, like personally. As you guys probably know, because I think I talk about it in some of these videos, I looked a little bit more into Meg, watched a couple of her videos about publishing this book, all of that stuff, and like, I'm so torn on it because like, for one thing, she just seems so much like happier and peppier than Jenna Moreci. Jenna definitely seems like her entire style is two middle fingers raised to the sky, and whether you like her books or not, she doesn't care. But Meg just seemed like so hopeful that people would love this book as much as she did, and I vibe with that so much because like I always am just so desperate to find readers who feel the same way as I do, who love the same kind of books that I love, which is the kind of books that I write. And so I felt that so much when she was talking about her excitement about her release, and then she disappeared off the face of the earth. I'm surprised she hasn't come back yet. But she might just decide that the internet's not for her and stay gone. I'm really curious if she's going to continue this series or if she's going to write something else. She did talk about having written a couple of things before this. I'm not going to shade her for deciding to go self-published, especially with the condition that the publishing industry is in right now. If you want to know more about it, there are other author-tubers who are talking about it, but it's kind of a shit show garbage fire right now, and I understand not wanting to wade into that. I'm even rethinking my desire to wade into that. And it definitely seems like self-publishing in small press is maybe the wave of the future. I don't know. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is I am not going to shade her for deciding to go self-published. However, you all know that I think that this book should be on Wattpad for free. If Meg was not a big name on YouTube, this book could have quietly died in obscurity like so many self-published books, whether they're good or bad. But since she was a big name on YouTube, disaster. A lot of people were like, why didn't her beta readers save her? Where were her critique partners? This book is in such bad shape that I imagine that a couple of people maybe did tell her that she might have to start over from square one with this book. I don't normally say that you should do a whole rewrite of a book, but for this one, I would say consider it, because there are a lot of things in this book that need a complete overhaul, and rewriting it is going to be so much easier than trying to fix what's already here. So she might have been told that. There's a very real chance that one or more people told her that the book needed a complete overhaul. And because she was so excited about it, and because she had so much belief in it, she probably ignored these people. And that's the tough thing, because when you're getting outsiders' opinions, there might be people who don't like you or have a reason to tell you that your book sucks and you shouldn't even try. And trying to figure out like who those people are can be really challenging. So there could have been an earnest person who was just like honestly trying to tell her, look, this is a disaster, please start over. And she might have been like, well, this person clearly just doesn't have my best interests at heart. They just want to sabotage my book release. And when you're very big and popular on YouTube, there's a real chance that you will get at least a couple of those people getting into your beta readers. I'm small, and I have one person I know who just doesn't like me personally. I still let them beta read for me. Like, I'll let them. But I also know going in that they personally don't like me and tend to be way harder on my books. I've communicated with this person outside of the beta reading process, they just don't like me. Whatever, but as I was saying, it can be hard to tell if you don't know, especially if you're big and popular like Meg, who is trying to just sabotage you. So I kind of understand, and I don't think it was all the beta readers' fault. And I also don't want to be like pointing at Meg and being like, she's just a bitch with a giant ego. Like, just watching her videos, I think it is mostly naivety and hope. Unless she's very different to how she behaves on her videos, I think she just desperately wanted to believe that this book was good enough. And people still enjoy this. There are still 5 stars. This book is for some people. I just think that those people should be able to read it for free on Wattpad. It is really hard to hear when you have finished a book and you've worked for possibly years on it. It is so hard to hear, this isn't gonna work, start over. I would love to see her keep trying. I would love to see her maybe back off and just publish on Wattpad for a while, or on her own website, or wherever she wants to, and just get a feel for what her own style is. She needs to find out who she is as an author, and who her characters are, and what her authorial voice is, and what her ideas are, before she comes back and publishes for money something else. I don't know if she's ever written any fan fiction, but I strongly recommend she does it so she can practice more and get a feel, eventually start to branch out and get a feel for who she is. I've told this story before when I started to draw, and I know I'm not the best 2D artist out there, and that's because I don't really practice enough. But when I started to draw as a little kid, I used to trace coloring books. And that taught my hands how to make the shapes that would then later help me draw on my own. You can do the same thing with writing and fan fiction, where you start out being very rigid, but you slowly start to tweak things and move away from things until finally you're finding your own voice and going your own direction, and you're barely using the fan fiction at all. And I think that's what Meg could potentially do. Meg, if you're listening, write some fanfic. Just have a good time. Alright, was there anything else? I wanted to talk about the forgetting a little bit. We did talk about it at the end, what a ridiculous plot point that was. Everything was so convoluted about whose chips were doing what, whose memories were getting wiped faster or slower, what was up with Bastion, why did he need a special chip, like so much that could have been simplified. And of course, the absolute adoration, worship of Gwen by the end. It becomes very clear after a certain point that it's not the other characters, but in fact the author just wanting you to love and praise their main character. And Gwen was just an insufferable asshat. And also, poor Rora got the short end of the stick in pretty much every way. She was the one who got to be tortured. Yes, I know, Gwen's leg got broken, but she barely noticed. It was just kind of a boo-boo, really. She got shot in the shoulder twice, and we barely mention it again. No permanent damage done to her leg after all of the stunts she pulled.
Just a flesh wound.
Again, would have loved to have seen her wake up to like a new cyborg leg. Bastion, we already talked about him and how much cooler he could have been, especially with this motif of him being the Beast from this Beauty and the Beast couple that we have here. If he had been, like, we find out eventually how much of him is covered in metal, and it's not nearly as much as it's implied it will be, and I was really disappointed. I wanted him to be kind of, like, handsome but grotesque at the same time when she finally, like, saw his torso. I wanted him to have a lot of metal and have to process that this guy is not, like, maybe her ideal, like, specimen of a man, but she still loves him. You remember when the CW ages ago made a Beauty and the Beast, except for the Beast was just really hot most of the time, and I think he, like, could kind of transform into a creature, but even that wasn't that ugly. Wasted potential all around with Bastion. I don't know why he didn't get a POV. Someone told me that he had one and then it was taken out, and I don't know why. Whether that made him like really unlikable as a character, or whether his parts were boring, or what. Yeah, I think those are all my thoughts. If I think of more, I'll add them in, but that's it. I think it's starting to get dark outside. My living room is getting darker. So I think I'm gonna go reward myself and eat some ice cream and watch a movie and not have to think for a little while. Feel free to leave your comments about this book down below. How would you have fixed it? Do you think that there was a chance to save it, or did it need a complete overhaul? What do you think, if anything, is going to happen in book 2? Do you think Meg will come back for book 2, or is she going to appear someday with a brand new book that's outside of this series? Have any of you heard from Meg? I'm really curious. Like, I want to follow her now. Now that I've read this book, I want to follow her. But now she's gone, and I can't. Don't forget, if this made you irrationally upset and you want to go ahead and tear apart one of my books, you can! My fantasy romance, The Wolf and the Hawk, is available now on Amazon. The only thing I require is that you actually read the book. I had to read this. You actually have to read my thing. And who knows? Maybe you'll like it. Maybe. I don't know. Especially if you like fantasy romance. If you don't like fantasy romance, probably not. Alright everyone, that's enough rambling for me. Don't forget that you can support me on Patreon, where your votes on the next read-along count for 2, so don't forget to check that out. Plus you can do things like boss me around and make me read other terrible books. You can also leave suggestions for upcoming read-alongs down below. This one was really actually kind of fun. As disastrous as this book was, it was a fucking ride. So I might have the energy to go into another read-along and not have as much of a weight as I did before this one, because the last one took a lot out of me. Also, you can suggest things on any of my social media, linked in the doobly-doo, and I will see all of you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye!
Gallivant may not believe in you, but I do. I super believe in you, Tad Cooper.
Rita, Thea, Alyssa, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, AC, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, Sarah, and Lennox. Thanks for super believing me, everyone.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound. Look, stop that! Chicken! Chicken! Look, I'll have your leg. Right! Right, I'll do you for that. You what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible! You're a loony.